Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. So if this is your first one, welcome. If you've been to one before, welcome again. My name is Meg Haller. I am one of the pilot grant program coordinators, and we've recently welcomed Joshua Taylor onto our team also as a pilot grant program coordinator. And I will kind of pass the reins over to him and let him give the rest of the presentation. But yes, first, anyone who may have missed it, please, for attendance purposes, just put your name and institution in the chat for us, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, everybody. So as Meg said, my name is Josh. I'm one of the pilot grant coordinators here with WVCTSI. To just get us started, I'm going to talk about what we are and our mission, just in case you didn't know. So we are funded by the NIH through the CTR award, and our mission really is to increase research capacity across West Virginia and Appalachia as a whole to help improve health outcomes within that area. And to do this, we established research partnership across our partner institutes such as Marshall and WVSOM and other CTSI institutes across the area. So we just work together with a bunch of different institutes to try to help out health outcomes. So what we are ourselves are an academic home and catalyst for clinical and translational research that targets priority health areas. And we have those health areas listed here. So we target addiction, emerging epidemics, including hepatitis, HIV, and COVID-19. So big thing here is we just don't focus on COVID-19. We focus on a bunch of different epidemics, as well as cardiovascular disease, including stroke research, Alzheimer's disease, chronic lung disease, and cancer. Now, while these are our focus areas, we do fund outside of these areas quite often, and we'll cover a little bit more about what these mean in terms of application later on. So jumping into our agenda for the day, we're going to start today by kind of going over the pilot grant program, looking at eligibility, kind of what our budget allows for and doesn't allow for, and then Meg will lead you guys through the application process itself to kind of show you, highlight different parts of the RFA, as well as kind of show you what it looks like on our website. Then we'll go on and give you some tips from previous applications to kind of help you out with your own, kind of shore it up, give you a preview of our additional WVCTSI services, and then we'll end today with a Q&A session so you can ask any question that may come up. Additionally, I do have my chat up on here on the other window, so if you have any questions, you can either just chime in at any point or type it in chat and we'll make sure we get it. And this will be recorded and posted online afterwards, so you can view it at any time. So if you have any questions that come up during that, you can always feel free to email us with our contact info. We'll get that out at the end of this. So let's jump right into eligibility. So the first big thing I want to hit here is that this is not limited to just WVU. While we are based at WVU, we do connect with all our partner institutes across the state. Big thing is just we fund all principal investigators that hold a faculty or faculty equivalent position at one of our partner institutes. And these partner institutes include the Charleston Area Medical Center, CMAC, Marshall University. Big thing with here is you must hold an appointment in the School of Medicine, the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine, and West Virginia University across all campuses. And this includes the Eastern campus down in Martinsburg and the one down in Beckley as well. So as long as you hold a faculty or faculty equivalent position in any of those, you can apply these and hopefully get some funding. So let's look at our available RFA or available funding opportunity right now. So for the spring, we only have the one, which is Jumpstart. So Jumpstart is our smaller funding opportunity that we release 2 times a year. And we really use this to obtain critical data needed to complete a manuscript submission or provide needed preliminary data for a grant application or resubmission. Additionally, a lot of people use these for feasibility studies to get an idea you have that might need some funding to get off the ground. And to that end, we give up to $10,000 over a duration of 6 months. So this is a smaller application. So full applications are just due on February 7th with no need for a letter of intent. You just submit the whole thing right there and then. Big thing with this is we do allow human subject research, but we do not allow clinical trials. Again, this is just a 6-month trial, a 6-month grant. So you're not really going to get a clinical trial out of that, just kind of like this preliminary or critical data kind of looking at stuff. So that's the RFA that's available right now. Full applications are due February 7th. And then we have additional funding opportunities that are not currently available that may pop up in the year or years to come. So our first is our bench to bedside program. This is where we pair a basic research scientist with a clinical investigator To this end, we give $50,000 per year over a course of 24 months or 2 years, and we release this in alternate years. We recently released this in 2023, so I don't anticipate we'll release this again in 2024, but it is on one of our available opportunities that may come up in the future. Additionally, we have our Rapid Response Grant, RFA, and this is basically just a very focused, as it says, a rapid response grant dedicated to one of our emerging health issues under our priorities. To this end, we give $30,000 over a 12-month period, and these don't really have a set scheduled release. They are rapid response as we give them out and we announce them, and then we get the responses rather quickly. So I don't know when we'll have the next one of those up, but it is a possible one coming up in the future. Now, our final two, we release once a year, along with the Jumpstart. Like I said before, we release that twice a year. So release the Jumpstart and these two again later on in the year. So Open is our primary developmental funding opportunity for clinical and translational science. It's our big one. And for this, we fund up to $50,000 over a 12-month period for non-human subject research and over a 24-month period for human subject research. So if you need human enrollment, we give you a little bit more time to get that through. And we release this once a year. So we'll be releasing this later on in the year, probably late May over the summer to fall. But that will be released with another Jumpstart later in the year. And then we also have our launch grant. So the launch is it provides proof of concept funding to accelerate the translation of intellectual property. And this is also $50,000, but over a 9-month period. And again, releases once a year, so it'll be released later in this year, but is not currently available. So those are just the ones that we also have up on the docket. Again, Jumpstart's the only one we have available now, but these will be coming up at some point here soon. So to find out all of our available RFAs, you can go to our website here. And I'm actually going to pass it off to Meg so she can go in and lead you through the website and kind of walk you through the application process. I think you're still muted.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, are you seeing my screen? Okay, perfect. Okay, so first I just wanted to start off by taking you onto our website's homepage. So this is WVCTSI.org. And you are going to find here up in this corner of resources and services. This is where you'll find us, but this is also where all of our kind of other service pages live. So if you're looking at other kind of opportunities that our different cores offer, you'll probably be able to find them in one of these buckets. But we live down in research funding. So you would click onto there. Before I go into the kind of the nuts and bolts of the RFA, I just wanted to highlight a few things on our funding page, because there's a lot of information that you'll find here that will probably help you as you're putting your application together. So this is being recorded, and then this will replace our old info session up there. And you will be able to access it probably a few days after this as our communications teams works to get it up. But until then, our last one that we gave over the summer is up. And a lot of the information is very similar or, the same. So if you're eager to get to it or watch it and the new one's not up, this one is currently there. We'll also upload the slide deck and it'll go here. And the previous slide deck from the last one in the summer is currently up there. We also have an info table of all of our RFAs on here that's really helpful, just to give you an idea of our different funding opportunities that we launch and how often we launch them, just so you're aware, if you're interested, kind of what the offerings may be or may come in the future. Another important place is our pilot forms, templates, and resources. So this is also located over here. We have our pilots, forms, templates, and resources. And this is where all of the forms that you could ever need for an application, you'll find here. If there's an extra component that you need and you're like, I don't know where to find that form, it's most likely under this tab of the pilot forms, templates, and resources. Like I said, you can find those all here. How to combine a PDF. If you're wondering if your project is a clinical trial or not, there's a decision tree here that you can kind of click on and look at. We also have located here some past funded projects that you can click on the side. So if you're interested in maybe some of the things that we've funded in the past, you can look at some of our past funded projects. It needs updated. There's definitely some new ones since, but if you just want an idea of what we funded in the past, you can kind of take a look at this on our website as well. but I'm going to go back here and get into, so all of our open all of our current what's available funding opportunities you'll find listed here. As Josh said, we only have Jumpstart available right now, so that's where you would find it. There's some overview information of Jumpstart here, but the complete RFA will be, you'll click this big green button, and that's where you'll get the document for the full RFA. So here is the full RFA. At the top, you'll have kind of the important contact information and the deadline. As Josh said, this is due February 7th by 5 p.m. I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is important for all of you to read to make sure you're eligible and that you're meeting all the requirements and things like that. So make sure you go through all of that when you're looking through the RFA. But what I really want to talk about is kind of the nuts and bolts of the application. And that's where at table 1, kind of where that process starts. So we go through in this table exactly what you'll need in your application and what form you should use for that page. So for your FACE page, we utilize NIH PHS forms for our applications, but we don't utilize all of them. So you don't need every single NIH PHS form in there. So make sure you pay attention to this table so you're not including unnecessary forms that maybe you don't need. Our FACE page, I have on our site on here, there's an example FACE page just to show you the highlighted sections, because I only need you to complete the highlighted sections. So you don't need to fill out all of this stuff. And that's what we get the most questions on. They're like, I don't know what to put here. That's because you don't have to fill it out. So only the highlighted sections is what you need to fill out. And you can find that on that templates forms and pages on our site that I was telling you about here. But we will go back into the RFA and click on the NIH PHS forms. So this is where it takes you to the NIH PHS forms, and you can download them in either Word or PDF form. Your document will have to be submitted to us in one PDF form, but some people like to start out with Word and then switch it to PDF. So whatever you prefer. And you'll find here the FACE page they have. You can click on any of these forms, download them. So here's that FACE page. Like I said, in those highlighted example one I had, you only have to fill out the highlighted sections. We also use form page 2. If you have multiple investigators, these are usually, multiple PIs. Sometimes this happens for our larger grants. You would utilize form page 1 continued. If not, you go on to form page 2 and complete that form. Like I said, you can click here, download that as well. And this is where you kind of have your project summary, and all personnel gets listed on these pages. Come back to here. You can utilize the table of contents if you like. Sometimes it's helpful for reviewers when looking at your application to kind of see where everything's located. And then we use form page 4 for the budget. So this is the only budget form that you need, as well as a budget justification. So you'll use a continuation page on this and do a budget justification with this budget form. But I know they have multiple budget forms that you can kind of do on the PHS forms. You don't need to do all of them. We just do that form page 4. And then everything else goes on a continuation format page. And like I said, I'm saying this now, but don't feel like you need to write it down or anything, because it is right here in the RFA. So it'll tell you exactly what form you should be using for each one. So like I said, the project summary and all that, you're going to be using form page 2, and it gives you some information on that. On your approach and research strategy section, you'll use those continuation pages that I showed you, and this will be 3 pages total. It's, it's a smaller application, so, it's not that much, and you want to make sure you fit everything in there. So specific aims are not to exceed half a page. And then next is your research plan. And this is where we have all of these 5 different sections that you need to make sure you're including in your research plan, and that each section has an appropriate section heading so someone can easily look at your application and see where the hypothesis is, where's the approach. So that's background, hypothesis, significance, innovation, and approach. You want to make sure those are clearly identifiable in your application. Your references will go on a continuation format page. And then your budget and budget justification, like I said, that will be form page 4, and then you'll use a continuation format page for your budget justification. I also, after this, I'll show you an example application that'll kind of show this all put together, because I know just saying it can be a lot. Also, make sure if you have any disclosures that you need to disclose anything, you can read through that. There's a policy here that you can read through if you need additional information. Bio sketches. So we use NIH bio sketches. They have examples on the website. They have instructions on how to do it, and they have the form. So if you haven't done a bio sketch and this is maybe your first one, you can always reach out to us too, and we're happy to look over your bio sketch and kind of let you know how it's looking. But definitely starting on that NIH, we have some linked things here. They have really good instructions and examples on their site. And you're going to want to include an NIH bio sketch for all of, the personnel, like any PI or co-Is on the project. You're going to want to make sure you include an NIH bio sketch for them. Letter of support. So we ask you to have a letter signed by your immediate supervisor acknowledging their support for the project and providing assurance that sufficient protected time to complete the research will be available. You can include our checklist in there, or you can just kind of fill it out on your own and make sure you have everything. And so if your project does not involve human subjects, then that's kind of all that you need. But if you have some of these additional things, which this all goes into budget, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the slides, Josh will touch on. But here's at table 2, you want to make sure you don't fit in any of these additional categories where you may need a few additional components to your application. So if you're doing a human subject research, and like Josh said, it can be a project involving human subjects, but it cannot be a clinical trial. So there can't be like an intervention or anything like that. And on these, there's some extra forms you'll need. So if it's human subjects, you need to fill out our human subjects form template, and we'll kind of go over this in there, but in the slides, but there's some questions here that'll help you evaluate how you answer them, if it's a clinical trial or not. So that's something as a way if you're kind of unsure about that. So you'll fill out that form, and then you'll also complete the PHS inclusion enrollment report. And this is where you kind of use census data to estimate how many you think, you'll have your sample size, and you can't totally know the demographics of who you will recruit. It's just kind of an estimation based on the census data for your area. And this is a tricky form that it likes to cause a lot of problems. So if you're having issues, usually if you click on it, download it, save it to your computer, and then open it, it'll open. But sometimes, people still can't get it. It's something on the NIH website that it just doesn't download that well. And so if you're having issues, reach out to us and we can send it to you in Word version. If your project involves vertebrate animals, you need to put this little extra section in here and make sure you hit on all these headers. And you also need to make sure you have proof of IACUC submission in there. If it's animal or humans, you need to make sure that you have city certificates for anybody who's listed on your application involved in the project. You need to make sure you have city certificates for them. If it's a human subject, it needs to be under the human research curriculum group, and you only need one course. You only need one of these per person. And then if it's vertebrae animals, it can be any course from the animal research curriculum group. And you want to make sure you include those in your application. If you've had prior CTSI or INBRE pilot funding, we ask that you kind of provide a little page giving additional information about that, and all that's listed here. If it's a resubmission, we also ask that you provide a little bit of extra information, and that's kind of listed here on what we're looking for. So with those, I will go into an example application that I have up. So here is our example application. And we show here, it's the face page filled out. We have the PI, and they've listed that it is a human subjects research project. So I'm going to make sure that they have kind of all the additional information in there that needs to be. Here's your project summary, your relevance, and then key personnel. They only have them listed, and then a co-investigator. So here's where you would kind of have all that research strategy section and your specific aims, those 3 pages. You'd have your reference page, and then down here, it would be your budget. You're not allowed to request PI salary for this project, so that is not there. Some things that they budgeted on here. And then they have a budget justification on one of those continuation format pages. And then they have a biographical sketch for every all of that key personnel listed. So this is the PIs, and I will kind of hurry through these because I'm sure you don't want to read all of their. And then this was the other individual that was listed as a co-I on their project. So this is their bio sketch. Reviewers are always really looking for the bio sketches. They want to know the experience of the people on your team. Here's that human subjects template form. They had checked that it was a human subjects project, so you need to make sure you include this. It's not a clinical trial, so they only have to complete sections 2.1 to 3.2. They answer the questions here. If you answer all of them yes, then it's a clinical trial, so it wouldn't be eligible for here. But if any of them are answered no, then it most likely isn't. If you're questioning though how to answer one, you're not totally sure, please reach out to us. The sooner we can get ahead of it and determine if it's a clinical trial or not, the better. We don't want to waste anyone's time with preparing an application and us getting it and saying, I'm sorry, this is a clinical trial, it's not eligible for this funding opportunity. So if you're questioning anything, please reach out to us. And then you would have that letter signed by your immediate supervisor. Here's that PHS inclusion enrollment report where you would kind of do an estimation based on census data of, and it's meant to be reflective of your study sample plans and expectations, but it does not constitute a formal commitment to an unchangeable sample size or demographics. And then a city certificate. So you'll have the PI on the project and any other personnel listed on the application. This was a human subject project, so they needs to make sure that it's under that human research curriculum group. So that is kind of the example application that I have there. And then I can stop my share. Josh, did I miss anything? Did I forget anything there?
Nope, I think that was great. Covered it all.
Okay, so I'll push it back to you. Let you continue on.
I'm gonna Meg went over it all very well, so I'm just gonna highlight some big things that we tend to have questions on, just to really hit them once more and make sure that they're clear as can be. And again, all this is found in the RFA. Just hit it again right now. So part of the appendices of the application, these are required for all people. We need bio sketches for the PI and all key personnel listed. Remember that we do have a 5-page limit per bio sketch. Anything more than that will get flagged for improper formatting. We need the city certificates for everything relevant to your project. As Meg said, we only need the 1 for each personnel on there. We don't need 7 for each person. We just really need that one just to show that they have that certification to do the work that they're listed for doing. And then finally, all applications are going to need a letter of support from your chair or center director, pretty much just saying that you're going to have protected time available to do the research that the grant is covering. And again, we recommend about 10%. And to help with this, we can get consultations from our services that we're going to cover here later on to kind of help you out and get that set up. And then we also have some stuff that's just really as needed. So this is only if your project falls into needing these categories. So if you're doing human subjects, we just need a human subjects protection section. If you're going to do any inclusion or enrollment, you're going to need the inclusion enrollment report that Meg went over. That's that weird one. Vertebrates, animals, if you're going to work with them, we're going to need an animal section for that. And this is a big one here, is that we need proof of IACUC submission prior to you submitting the application. This differs a little from IRB. IRB can wait until after you submit the application, but if you're going to be working with IACUC at all, we need to see proof of that submission prior to you submitting the application. And just keep in mind with the IRB and the IACUC submission that the protocol title that you include on that should match the proposal title that you are submitting for your application. And then this part is for our larger grants, but I'm going to mention it here just as well. If you're an early stage investigator, early stage being defined as in within 10 years of your terminal degree or professional residency, um, we are going to need a mentorship agreement if you're going to serve as the IP there. Just kind of make sure you're doing the best research and you get the proper mentorship throughout the course of the grant. But again, that's for a larger grant. Jumpstart, you don't have to worry about that. Now, Meg went over the human subjects protection stuff, so I'm just going to hit it again here. But the big thing we really want to worry about is that 4-question tree at the start here. We use these to help you determine whether or not your study qualifies as a clinical trial. So if you have a no at any point during these 4 questions, you are not a clinical trial and you're good to apply for Jumpstart. But on the other hand, if you say yes to all of these and answer yes truthfully all of these, you are a clinical trial and would not be eligible for Jumpstart. We do have our launch and open for the clinical trials, but for Jumpstart, we do not allow those clinical trials. And again, if you have any questions about these or need any clarification, feel free to reach out to us as soon as possible. We'd love to answer your emails and kind of help you through that just to kind of save you time and save us time on both ends, just to make sure that you're applying for this correctly and you get the right eligibility. Moving on from that, sections 2.1 to 3.2 are required by all projects, including a human subject. So if you're doing any human subject whatsoever, you need to do these sections. Anything beyond that is for clinical trials. And for, again, Jumpstart, we don't allow clinical trials, so you don't really need to worry about that as much. So jumping into the budget, Meg went over it again, but we're going to highlight the parts that tend to lead to more questions. So on the left here, I have what's allowable. So we allow you to pay a salary of non-faculty personnel, if you need a consultant or something similar to that. We allow for materials, supplies, equipment to be bought. We allow for budgeting of travel needs to complete the study and publication costs and conference travel. On publication costs, we tend to advise against that just because it is a 6-month grant and it's very rare that you go from gathering the data to being ready for publication during that 6-month period. So typically we advise against that, though we do include it. The exact amount is listed in the RFA of what you can go up to. And for conference travel, if you're going to be traveling to conference during that time, make sure it lies within your actual grant to make sure it's actually part of the grant and budgeted correctly. On the flip side, we have our unallowable stuff. So the big thing here, we do not allow faculty salary with the Jumpstart grants. For the open and launch, we do allow 10% of the overall budget, not the overall salary. 10% of that is allowable for the open and launch grants, but for the Jumpstart, we do not allow faculty salary to be paid out from it. Additionally, we do not allow the budgeting of indirect cost and bridge funding. And then I'm going to circle back here to student stipends. Student stipends are a little weird. So per the NIH, we cannot pay students stipends through these grants, but we can pay them hourly. So if you bring on a student worker and you want to pay them hourly, that's okay, but straight up paying them a stipend is not allowed. So it's a little weird and a little kind of finicky, but that's just how the NIH has it, so we have to follow through with that.
And really quick, I just wanted to mention that this is not the whole list of our allowable and unallowable costs. In the RFA, you'll find additional allowable and unallowable. So make sure you refer to there as you're doing your budget. These are just some things we wanted to highlight.
Yes, these are the often question ones. So again, if you have any questions about the ones in the RFA or the ones listed here, feel free to reach out to us. We'll clear it up. We want to help you have a good application. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. So I'm going to circle back into our areas of focus and kind of highlight them in our funding priorities here. So when we say funding priorities, if you look in the RFA, we actually will deduct points from your application. So just as a reminder, we use the NIH rating scale where 1 to 9, 1 being the best and what you want to get, and 9 being the worst and not a great application. So with each one of these, we actually deduct a 0.25 off your overall review score up to a full point for each one of these you fall into. So if you're an early stage investigator and or a clinician-led proposal, in both these cases, you would get 0.25 off. Projects that also utilize the PBRN or the community engagement strategies, again, help with our priorities of ours. Any of our partner institution PIs that apply, they also get some priority with the funding and how we review it. And then reaching back to our research priorities that we highlighted at the beginning of addiction, emerging epidemics, cancer, cardiovascular disease, chronic lung disease, and Alzheimer's disease are also priorities for us to fund. And again, as I said at the beginning, we don't only fund for these priorities here. They just are what we, our mission is part of our mission. So we tend to give those a little bit priority. And again, that 0.25 deduction. But if you don't fit into these, always feel free to apply. We do fund a wide variety of stuff. These are just what we really focus on. I'm gonna let Meg give you guys some tips of building a great application.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. So just in my experience, some insider tips of what reviewers are looking for. So you want to make sure somewhere in your application, you're including your future directions. If you plan on applying for a larger grant opportunity, what's next for your project? So reviewers are kind of looking at, okay, seems like a good project, but where's it going? What's next? So when you get the information that maybe you're looking for, what do you have going next? And this is a small proposal, so you don't need to go into big detail, but just making sure, you provide at least a few maybe sentences on your future direction for this project. Feasibility. So this is a really big one for these projects. They are 6-month projects. So you want to make sure what you're proposing can fit within that time frame. It is a short time frame. And so really reviewers look really big on feasibility for these projects. Is this feasible? Is what you're proposing going to be able to happen in the 6-month time period? Are you going to be able to get statistically significant data in this time period for your project? So you want to make sure that the project that you're proposing kind of is going to be feasible with that time frame. And that's something that's really big with these smaller grants. Consultations with CTSI services. So have you utilized our bird core, which is kind of like our biostats epidemiology team? Have you reached out? If you're interested in utilizing their services, there's someone we recommend a lot of our pilots to kind of check in with if you need a power analysis or something. If you're working heavy with data, they're really good resource. You can also work within our PI Academy. That's another good resource, or a professional development course. So if you've consulted with CTSI services, you can kind of also include that in there. Publication track record. And also if you are newer to research and maybe you don't have a really robust publication track record, make sure that maybe you have someone on your team that does. And that's where those bio sketches are important. Reviewers really do look at the bio sketches. So you want to make sure that if you don't have the experience somewhere, that you have someone on your team that does. So if there's a place where you're lacking, try to get someone on your team that has the experience there. So when, reviewers are looking at your application, they're seeing a well-rounded application. And if you're proposing something in there and then they look at your bio sketch and they're like, they have no experience with this, maybe you want to make sure you have someone on your team that does have some experience with that. So you can show them that it's well-rounded, well thought out, and that it's going to have, the appropriate team to complete the aims. Appropriate mentors, that goes right along with that. If you don't have a lot of experience or you're new to research, maybe you have a mentor who's a little bit more experienced, who's going to help you out with the project and maybe help you where you may be lacking in some places. Grantsmanship. Go back through your application before you submit it. Before you submit it, go give it a nice look through. Make sure that everything looks good, it's formatted correctly. Reviewers do not like to look through a messy application, and neither do Josh and I. So, really make sure that you have looked at all your spelling errors, you've looked at everything, it's not formatted crazy, everything kind of looks appropriate. It just shows that you put that attention into your application, and reviewers really do not appreciate applications that are not well put together. So that's just something I would recommend. Have other people look at it before you submit, and make sure you're giving yourself enough time with it so that other people can look at it, have some time to offer feedback, and you can make some changes if necessary. I'll pass it back to you, Josh.
Awesome. So one of the things that Meg mentioned was our PI Academy Lab. So this is a on-running meeting we have where it's pretty much a panel of experts and other PIs that can kind of give you feedback on different parts of your study and your grant. So clinical studies for the bigger ones are required to present, as well as human subjects. If you're doing a human subject study, you're required to present at an idea lab at some point part of the process. And it's really good even if you're like about to apply as well, because it gives you a chance to get some really good feedback from other researchers, some of which who have already held grants that we have posted and given out, as well as just kind of get some ideas and feedback from other people in your field or even outside your field. It's really good all around. You can contact Debbie Lee, which is listed here, to set up an idea lab date and time. And additionally, this is a newer thing that they're really pushing is the office hours that we're calling them. And it's basically, if you remember when you're in university, being able to go to one of your professors for office hours. It's a very similar thing here. We can go in and get one-on-one time with any of the experts on the panel and just get an idea of how you're doing, where your grant's at, and just get that one-on-one exposure, which is really nice. And we'll share the Zoom link to that in the chat after this as well. But it's a very good resource and a very good way to kind of make sure you know where you're at and get some feedback from that. So we've talked a lot about the pilot grants and the pilot grant program within WVCTSI, but there are actually a lot more to what we are. So many of these services here are also available to all our partner institutes. And if you get a grant through us, all these services are free. So you don't need to actually budget that into your grant. You can actually just use the services we have here. So we have study design and biostatistics, which can help you out with any biostats you need to do or any analyses. We have a biomedical informatics services. We have a clinical trials center of excellence, which kind of help you with study design, as well as enrollments and just support all around. We have the Western Union Practice-Based Research Network. We have our telehealth unit with the Project Echo. We have professional development that helps with grant writing, editorial services. We have an external proposal development, and then we have that PI Academy I mentioned. So basically, we have a lot of resources, and we really want you guys to use them. And like I said, a lot of these are available at partner institutes, and if you get a grant, they're free to use in your as part of your grant and part of your project. So again, don't need to budget them and take use of these. The best way I've found as someone who's rather newer to the whole system is really just go on the website and kind of play around and see what's there. You can either search what you're looking for and it can lead you to the best thing, or you can just go to our resources and services tab and it will lead you to all these as well. And on that subject, we have some really nice links here. And again, this will be posted on the website, so you can come back to this. But we have our pilot forms and templates and resources link here to get you all the forms you need. We have a link here to become a member. So this pretty much adds you to our emailing list. And I promise you, we do not bombard you with emails. We have a nice weekly one that just kind of contains all our news. And then anytime we have a new funding opportunity or new training opportunity, that will get sent out as well. And then we also have our Pilot Grant Essentials YouTube series, where you can view this video as well as other previous ones. And then again, the PI Academy, which I've hit on a lot. I've hit on a lot because it's very useful, and I highly recommend you guys take advantage of it either prior to applying or after your application, just at some point to really get that feedback. That's part of that whole system.
And really quick, if you are applying, so you're required to become a member anyway. So you might as well go ahead and get ahead of it and become a member. It's really simple. There's no cost. You just fill out a form, I think, on our website. And like Josh said, you'll be added to our mailing list and you won't be spammed, we promise.
And here's our contact info. If you guys have any questions afterwards, you can feel free to email either of us, as well as a link to the website itself. And I think that's all I have. If we want to answer any question you guys have,
yeah, we can open it up to some questions. If anyone has any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Hi, I have a question. If you're including human subjects, you said you have to present to the PI Academy's Idea Lab. When does that have to take place before you submit?
So for our larger grants, yes, but for Jumpstart, we don't really require that just because it's beforehand, just because it's such a small time period and they can't really fit them all in that span of time. But if you are awarded, you'll be required before your project can start to present it. And we just recommend that people, as soon as possible, to try to present, ideally before. But I know they're running out of kind of dates that go beforehand as that's getting kind of close. And it basically just because they'll offer you feedback that you can then incorporate in your proposal before you submit it. But if they run out of dates and you can't do it beforehand, that's okay. That won't make you ineligible for funding for Jumpstart. For larger, we have different requirements, but for Jumpstart, it doesn't have to be beforehand.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Also, anyone who may have missed, if you can put your name and institution in the chat for attendance purposes if you haven't yet. Just as a reminder, but just checking if there's any other questions.
Sorry, I'm a little obnoxious, but maybe you
Not
said
at
this.
all.
When how long does it take to review? Like, what would the earliest start date be that you could put down?
So that's difficult. It varies also based on the institutions, but our review process, so if we get the applications in early February, it typically takes about a week or so to get, a week or two to get, all of our reviewers in place, and then 2 weeks typically for them to review. So probably like sometime in, later March, maybe we'll have some funding decisions. And then once we meet with our team and make the official funding decisions, you can anticipate that maybe in April, you'll get a notification of just-in-time notices, maybe if you've been selected for funding or not. And this is for Jumpstart. This process typically moves a little bit quicker than our larger grants. And it from then, getting a start date is where things can get, it varies, because if you don't have IRB approval, so you need to get IRB approval first. So that can vary based on institutions and just how ready you are to submit your IRB. We have regulatory support that can help with that process, but that is something that takes a little bit of time. We also sometimes funding strings. We, as of right now, get our funding strings from OSP, so anyone from WVU, and so that can take a little bit of time. And if you're from a different institution, though, we don't have as much issue getting those funding strings up. We may be able to start sooner, but we don't like to start projects, obviously, until we have funding strings. So it really varies based on the projects and kind of where they're at and if they have all the required approvals and everything ready.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have shared the link to the office hours in the chat. So these are every Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. And they are that one-on-one I was talking about earlier on going over the PI Academy lab.
Yeah, so if you're unable to kind of present an idea lab, but you'd still like to meet with one of our panelists, they take turns sitting on those office hours. So you can kind of log into one of those and speak to them about your project beforehand if you're unable to get an idea lab presentation date before submission, but you still would like some feedback, you can do those office hours. Any other questions? Well, if any questions come up, please do not hesitate to reach out to Josh or I. It's probably best if you just email both of us and then one of us will get to you with a response. Also, we are never bothered by questions. That's what we're here for. So we want you to put together a good application. So we are happy to answer any of your questions about the application process and help in any way that we can. So please do not be shy. We can also hop on individualized Zooms with you to go over something or talk to you on the phone. If email's not really cutting it. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Like I said, we really want you to put in good applications. So we will help in however we can with that process.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day.